that this community is a human community. They're part of our community, and they absolutely deserve care and safety.
There's a lot of noise coming from the Toronto Public Library. A place that usually stays quiet is facing some major backlash. Catherine Hernandez is one of several authors to boycott the library for its decision to go ahead with an event that features a controversial figure who believes that transgender rights endanger women.
It was disheartening to know that a place that's usually safe for marginalized communities would be giving a platform to someone who is very well known to be spreading hate speech.
Megan Murphy has traveled around the world for talks that have criticized transgender legislation, highlighting concerns it could strip the legal rights of women. She has never been formally charged or accused of spreading hate speech.
Writers, of all people, should be the ones defending free speech and free expression. And they're taking this really kind of horrifying dictatorial approach where they want to silence opinions that they don't agree with.
A Toronto feminist group invited Murphy, who is a freelance writer based in Vancouver, to speak at the library. Despite a growing petition to pull the event, the facility is holding firm, saying in a statement, "As a public institution, our primary obligation is to uphold the fundamental freedoms of freedom of thoughts, belief, opinion, and expression as enshrined in the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms." The mayor says he respects the library's decision, but still has concerns.
I would just say in a public building, we have an obligation to set a higher standard, and that's why I'm disappointed in this decision.
I can't believe that this is even controversial, never mind being called hateful. It's not. I mean, I support people's right to live the lives they want to live.
Now, Hernandez has actually pulled her book launch from this library branch. Meanwhile, this isn't the first time that Murphy has faced such backlash. Earlier this year, the Vancouver Public Library also hosted a talk session there, and it was actually the library banned from participating in any of the city's Pride events so far this year. Farah?
Okay, Morgan Campbell outside Palmerston Library. Thank you.
Toronto Library's Palmerston branch, where there's some controversy over a speaking event tonight. You can see some protesters there. CTV's Tracy Tong is among them. And Tracy, they're upset not just with the speaker, but also where this is happening.
That's right, Ken, and you can see behind me there's actually a crowd of several hundred people now gathered outside the Toronto Public Library on Palmerston. Many of them part of the LGBTQ community or are supporters. They are angry at the event that is taking place here tonight. That is a talk that is hosted by a self-described feminist, Megan Murphy. She has been criticized for her views against transgender rights. Now, this event was largely protested by the community. The Toronto Public Library, however, upheld their decision to hold this event here. There was a petition online with more than 8,000 signatures, but the city librarian said that this is about protecting freedom of speech, which is why they have decided to keep this event happening tonight. Now, there was also another protest earlier before this one outside the Toronto Public Library that was happening at Barbara Hall Park, just beside the 519 in the Village. Several dozen people showed up there as well, and they had to have their voices heard. They said they did not want this event to continue, but it is happening here tonight. Here's what some of the LGBTQ community members and supporters had to say today.
Megan Murphy ascribes value judgment on all women based on their ability or inability to carry a pregnancy. In my view, that's a human rights violation in and of itself.
As a trans woman and also as a Governor General award-winning poet and writer in this community, I work as an intellectual and as a writer, and I'm often in the Toronto Public Library and community spaces. Having a transphobic speaker at the Toronto Public Library endangers me because, among other things, they advocate that I shouldn't be allowed in women's washrooms, that I'm a threat to cisgender women, that I am a rapist, and all of these statements cause people to fear trans women and to act violently towards us in public spaces.
This is a woman who doesn't think trans women should be called women. Why does she have a platform in our Ontario Public Library? This is borderlines on hate speech. There already have been complaints from her own staff. There have been complaints to the Ontario Human Rights Commission because she is in breach of that.
Now, that earlier protest held at Barbara Hall Park was actually hosted by Pride Toronto. They say because of tonight's event, they are ending their relationship with the Toronto Public Library, meaning that they will no longer host events at those venues, at public libraries, because they no longer feel safe there. As for tonight's event, the talk is expected to start at around 6:45. We're told it will be happening inside the theater at this library, that there are 110 seats. They are at capacity and tickets were being sold for $5. Reporting live, I'm Tracy Tong. Michelle, back to you.
Protesters stand their ground along Palmerston Avenue tonight as police are called in to keep the peace over the Toronto Public Library's decision to follow through on an event accused of promoting hate and intolerance. Good evening. The library said it had an obligation to protect free speech, but it's a move that sparked outrage among the LGBTQ community and beyond. CTV's Tracy Tong is live outside the Palmerston Library with more on how the evening unfolded. Tracy.
Well, Zoraida, I can tell you there were some pretty tense moments outside the public library on Palmerston tonight as hundreds of people loudly chanted and protested the decision to allow a controversial blogger speak here tonight. An angry crowd shouted at those leaving the Toronto Public Library on Palmerston tonight.
A public institution shouldn't be platforming hate speech like this.
Altercations even getting physical after an appearance by self-proclaimed feminist Meghan Murphy.
For a group that claims an interest in feelings and empathy, these activists don't seem to have any concern for women's feelings.
Meghan Murphy ascribes value judgment on all women based on their ability or inability to carry a pregnancy. In my view, that's a human rights violation in and of itself.
Murphy told a sold-out crowd of more than 100 attendees that her views on transgender rights have been misrepresented.
I've never said that trans women are not real women. What I have said is that trans-identified males are male. And this is because they are, and this is not an insult or a judgment. This is just a material reality, a biological reality. If you're born male, you remain male for life.
There was a heavy police presence as hundreds of LGBTQ community members and their supporters took over the street outside the library. Some eventually finding their way into the building and refusing to leave. Tensions rising between the two sides.
I feel angry. I feel angry and confused about why you would come out against human rights. I don't get it.
Can we ask him why you showed up here?
Yeah, to give support to Meghan Murphy.
I think it's incredibly hurtful that our public institutions are being used to amplify and promote hate speech in our city.
Pride Toronto cutting ties with the Toronto Public Library tonight over their decision to host the event to protect free speech.
Given that they have not reversed this decision, that we don't see a future working relationship, which is a real shame because for sure we saw us working together into the future.
As protesters swarmed the library's main entrance, Murphy was let out discreetly through another exit. And Toronto City Councillor Kristen Wong-Tam tweeted tonight saying that the Toronto Public Library wrongly allowed a transphobic speaker use a public space to attack a charter-protected group. She says she has moved a motion now to review the booking rules for all public spaces. Reporting live, I'm Tracy Tong. Zoraida, back to you.
Thank you, Tracy.